It doesn't matter what style you have, as long as you have the same style over and over, so you can master that style, and so that when people come to you, they know what they're getting.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode. Sorry, I'm going to start over. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Photo Pros Weekly. I'm Brandon Heiss, and I'm here again with Olivia Tuttle. This week, we're going to dive in deep with Yannick Wasiak. And I know I butchered that. Did I butcher it?
No,
Wasiak.
as many people, yeah,
Wasiak.
it's in Polish. It's actually pronounced Wasiek, but yeah, that's
Wasiak. I'll be an expert in Polish by the end of this today's episode. But Yannick is a portrait photographer based out of Southern California. And first, welcome, Yannick. How are you?
pretty good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super honored.
Yeah, we're honored that you're willing to take out a few minutes from your day to spend some time with us regular Joe Schmoes over here. So Yannick, tell us a little bit about yourself for people that aren't familiar with your work. Tell us a little bit about your photography.
Yeah, so originally started photography over 40 years ago when I got my first camera, but professionally I've been photographing for 15 years. I started in Chicago, and about 4 years ago, we moved, my family and I moved from Chicago to California. We first went to San Diego. We spent there 2 years in San Diego, and then we moved to Orange County, and that's where we are right now. And I have actually three brands, photography brands. One is Vasha Photography, which kind of is the umbrella of everything. So from weddings, family, product photography, dog photography. And then we have Vasha Faces, which is our headshot brand. So this is professional headshots, actors, conferences, branding, portraits, for companies. And then I have a third brand, which is a little bit less known, but it's kind of more like a niche. But I do it's called Vasho Master Print, where I create edits and prints for other photographers, and this is primarily for image competitions.
Okay, very cool. So where do you spend most of your time, Yannick? I mean, would it be the faces? Is it the portraits? Is it the art pieces?
Overall throughout the year, I think the most time I spend on headshots is because I photograph the most, the largest number of people through headshots. Before COVID, my average number per year was about 6,000 people that I took headshots, per year.
Wow.
So obviously that kept me pretty busy. Lately, late in the year, family photography keeps me extremely busy. So like September, October, November, sometimes December, it's like super busy with family. And then the product photography started to pick up a lot more for me now. So it's not like, it's not like that what keeps me busy, but definitely, it's growing.
Well, cool. No, I mean, headshots, obviously, I think we actually had Peter on an episode earlier. And obviously, people that know Peter Hurley know that he is heavily into headshots. You said 6,000 headshots. I mean, that's a crazy number. Like, I don't even know how many that is a day because I'm terrible at math. But
I definitely don't.
that's a lot of heads getting in front of you.
Yeah, so that's obviously not 6,000 people come to my studio.
Sure.
But I, before COVID, I did a good number of conferences. So I'll give you an example. I think one of the largest conferences where we photograph was for American Nurses Association, where we have two booths. So me and my wife, Sasha, we did headshots in parallel. And we were there for 3 days. And in those 3 days, we photographed 1,000 people.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea the kind of how the volume can build up pretty fast.
Sure. Yeah. So that's interesting that you're going to trade shows and events outside of our industry and you're doing headshots. So who brings you in for that? Is that just the trade show? Is that one of the exhibitors at the trade show?
I'm sorry. Who hires me for that?
Yeah.
It varies. So like for the Nurses Association, though, we were hired by the obviously the association because they wanted to provide extra value to the members, coming to the conference. And since a lot of nurses are lacking good headshots, so they thought there would be a great benefit, from coming to the conference to get an extra headshots. But then sometimes, like there was a conference that Oracle Quest organizes. It's like a training brand for Oracle. And we were actually sponsored by Canon, but not Canon the cameras, but Canon business processes or business processing and image processing, because they were one of the main sponsors of the conference. So we were sponsored by Canon as well to photograph those headshots. So, sometimes we are paid by the conference, and sometimes we are paid by one of the main sponsors of the conference.
Gotcha. So how many of these conferences do you think you do volume headshots at?
You know what? I give this started to grow and then kind of stop, obviously, with COVID. But just before COVID, I think so January, February, and I guess a little bit of March. I did 4 conferences in those 2.5 months.
Wow.
And actually, I left Vegas right one day just before they shut down Vegas because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so the first 3 months of last year, I was in Vegas, I think 3 times for 3 different conferences. And then the other 2 I did in California.
Gotcha.
So you still stayed busy even when COVID hit?
No, so this was before COVID. Obviously, right now with COVID, all the conferences are dead. They start to talk about it. So, one of the big conferences that I photograph is the special event, which is a conference for all event planners in the U.S. So, we did it one in California, we did one in Vegas, and then we're doing this year in Miami. So that's, another big conference. So now this is like one of the first conferences that kind of coming back after COVID.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like this is a cool opportunity, and I know there's only so many, events that you can be at. How'd you get into this? I mean, did you reach out to them? Did they reach out to you? Like, what can other photographers do to kind of find value here?
I tried different avenues. In San Diego, we used to live across the street from the San Diego Convention Center. So I actually reached out to them and ended up advertising on their website, that we do photography, because I thought that this would be a good kind of, connection. But then over time, I realized that the convention center itself is not in charge of anything besides just providing the space. So they're not the decision makers when it comes to hiring a photographer for a conference. It's really somebody from the organization that is putting together the show that's actually make the decision if we want to have a photographer or not. So as simple as that, I mean, SEO is the answer here. I mean, it just took me months to kind of, to rank properly. But right now, for anything like headshots, trade show related, I mean, we are like, number 1 or number 2 nationally. So, for when people search for us, I mean, for headshots to do a conference. So that kind of, brought us, the business.
Awesome. Well, good work, man. That's sounds like that's keeping you busy, and once things return back to normal.
I mean, I did a lot of cold calls and cold emails to different organizations. I went through all the major cities and see who's organizing what conferences, and then but this, when people are not ready, thinking, the probability is low. So it's really a numbers game. So you're gonna be doing a lot of emails and phone calls, and gonna hear no a lot. So then, those people that search for a headshot at conferences, they're already kind of thinking about it and are ready to make the decision. So that's, in terms of conversion, the SEO is the best option. But of course, reaching out to different organizations and, keeping in touch with them, building the network, that helps a lot.
Well, cool, man. Well, that sounds like that keeps you kind of busy. And then you still have a ton of other, faces walking into your studio, right? So, how many you're doing? Probably a few a week. I mean, headshots are huge right now. I just don't think people realize how big they are.
Yeah, I do between 2 to 4 sessions per day.
That's
headshots.
Nuts. That's nuts.
So,
Well,
That's I mean today I it's a different day because today I'm doing graduate portraits for Los Angeles City College.
hmm
So I'm shooting today the graduation portraits, but so that's why it's blocked from headshots. But practically every I mean it's every day 2 to 4 headshots.
cool. Are you sick of it yet, or you have fun with it?
No, not at all. Not at all. I love it.
As long as money's
I love
coming in the
because
door
people,
and you
I
got
love
a
to hear
camera
when
in your
people
hand.
come. It's like I'm not photogenic. I hate my photos being taken, and then and they're kind of like, wow, this actually I look good today.
Yeah, yeah.
So seeing the the difference that we make in people's opinion about themselves actually helps a lot. To be motivated.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think that would be the best part.
Absolutely. I think that's something Peter shows too a lot is he says, he likes making people like having their personality come out. I know Yannick, you kind of you and Peter kind of remind me a lot of each other. You guys use some of the same practices and that sort of thing. So, what's a tip that you would give somebody who maybe is a portrait photographer, maybe is just taking, photos on the weekend or they're kind of a hobbyist. What's a tip you would give somebody who's interested in headshot photography? Because you do so many headshots. Besides like SEO and that sort of thing, actually photography related, what's a tip that you would give somebody looking to do more
the
headshots?
biggest tip, and this is something that I actually learned from Peter, is consistency. It doesn't matter what style you have, as long as you have the same style over and over, so you can master that style, and so that when people come to you, they know what they're getting, right? You can be following Peter's style, the headshot crew style, or you can develop a different style, completely different. As long as people know what is your style, that's where they're gonna be hiring you because of that's what you deliver. I think and I see so many different photographers, especially doing headshots, when their portfolio is basically a range of every type of headshots you can imagine. From lower angle up, higher angle, 85 millimeter, 200 millimeter, lighting, dramatic lighting, flat lighting, black and white, not black and white. It's like, so it's like every photo is different. So it's like if I am a client and I go to somebody's website and I look at those headshots, I'm like, I really have no clue what kind of headshots I'm gonna get.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point, Yannick, and I think a lot of people need to hear that too with building portfolios. Not even just with headshots. Let's say you have your portfolio, your best work. I can't tell you how many times I've watched like Scott Kelby, The Grid, where he's doing portfolio reviews or anybody that does a portfolio review. And you look at the first photo and it's a beautiful portrait. And then you look at the second photo and it's a lighthouse on the beach. And then you look at the third photo and it's a flower. And then the fourth photo is like a sports photo. And you're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, where is your consistency? Nobody knows what kind of photographer you are. You don't have any kind of consistency. So I think that is an exceptional tip out there for not only headshot photographers, but any photographer. Your portfolio should be concentrated. And, I know a lot of people say, well, I'll do any work. That's cool, but your portfolio on your website maybe needs to be segmented because you should probably have a weddings section and a newborn section and, segment it out because it's so like, I don't know what the word is. I'm like, I get uncomfortable when I see people trying to like lump it all into the same category. You're like, yeah, you just lost me. Like, I don't know if you're a sports person.
And and I'm probably one of the guilty guys that I love photography in general. So I love to photograph big variety of things, right? So if you go to my, the vashophotography.com, you will see weddings, engagement, family, products, dogs, and headshots. So it's a pretty broad range. But if you go to my products, then okay, this is product photography. This is the kind of quality of work that I do. If you go to family, then you say, okay, this is my family work, but the photos in my family portfolio are pretty much, consistent, in terms of, how everything looks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I think also, like Brandon said, you do a really well job with segmenting it. Doing the Vasho faces and
Vasho faces. That was, my wife Sasha's idea. Just just separate it. Don't confuse people.
Mm-hmm.
So because it's so corporate. So if you're corporate, you definitely don't want, life's event photography mixed with it, right? So but then I just didn't want it. So like theoretically, I should create a separate brand for products, which I was thinking about it. But the fact of managing 4 different websites, it was just, I was like, too much, So
Yeah, you're gonna have to like hire out like a team, like build a team. Like you can't do that. You be shooting product in the morning and headshots in the evening, and you
Sports
know,
in the afternoon.
yeah, you be
yeah.
all over the place. You forget what you're shooting. Well, cool. No, that's awesome. And if you guys haven't seen that stuff, definitely check out Yannick's website. It's Vashio Faces. Did I get it right? That was
You're
good,
getting
right?
better. You're getting better.
But it's spelled WASIO faces.com. So yeah, no, you do some really killer work. It's consistent, and I love it, man. So good stuff. I guess moving on, we always like to ask people stories, like maybe crazy stories that you've came across. Have you had any nightmare like stories during a photo shoot that you've just had to like cancel the whole thing, or just it maybe is just turned out terrible, and maybe you haven't, but I think a lot of people have a funny story of when they were shooting at one point and things just hit the fan.
No, I mean, I don't think I have a horror story, thank God, and I'm gonna knock on the wood that I don't have any. But I always have a nightmares. Now it's a little bit less, over time. But I always have a nightmare that I missed a wedding, that
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
receiving a phone call on Saturday, and the couple's asking me, "Where are you?" And I have no clue that I had a wedding that day.
Yeah.
So that's my fear. But from the funny kind of situation. So my wife Sasha, this happened so many times. Practically after each wedding, she still dreams about the wedding, and she always dreams that the couple that we just photographed is in our bedroom. And she wakes me up multiple times throughout the night, shaking me like, Yannick, why aren't you photographing? They are here. So that's kind of like a night after wedding is almost a standard. I'll be walking out a few times by Sasha asking me to photograph the couple. So
It's unbelievable. Well, she cares about the business.
Yeah.
Sasha's good. She's
So you
one of the
don't
good
sleep
ones.
the night before or the night after.
yeah, I guess.
All right. So do you have like a favorite shoot you ever done? It sounds like you don't have any horror stories, which we'll knock on wood for you. But any shoots that like have been like a dream shoot for you, whether it be location, whether it be client, whether it be just something that happened during the shoot, just something amazing that's happened.
Well, I definitely Paris is my always my kind of close to heart place. I went to French school, to French grammar school, so my connection with France is very close. My sister and her family live in Paris. We got engaged with with Sasha in Paris as well. So when I had actually an opportunity to photograph an engagement session in Paris, and this was absolutely amazing. So that because the city is so close, like so meaningful to me. So to be able actually to photograph there is fantastic. And I know it's a cliche because there's so many couples that want to go to Paris to to be photographed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just the city is so magical. It doesn't matter how cliche it gets. It's still a beautiful city. So
Yeah. Now you mentioned you're Polish. You were born in Poland, correct?
yep, yeah.
And
But
when did you move
I was
to the
born in
States?
Poland, but I went to a French school in Warsaw at the French embassy.
Okay.
So that's why I kind of learned French when I was 5 years old, and then I was pretty fluent. Now I don't practice, so my French is kind of get rusty, but it's still a very natural language for me. So I learned English when I was 20, and then I learned French when I was 5. So when I listen to French seems still more natural as a language than English.
Mm-hmm. So while you were maturing, and that makes sense. When did you move from Poland then to the States?
I came to US 28 years ago, so 1992 or 93, yeah.
And what did you
So
want to
it's
do? Like what made you come to and I'm assuming you moved to Chicago. What made you move to Chicago? Was it you wanted to live the American dream? What was it?
Yeah, so actually, I was kind of dragged by my parents from Poland because definitely I was living a super happy life in Poland. And I was in college already when we moved, and we moved because my dad was a Polish consul, so he was representing Poland in Chicago at the Polish consulate, and that's how we moved with me and my younger sister. We moved to Chicago, and then my parents went back after 4 years back to Poland, and there was the dot-com boom this was happening. I was in IT back then, and this was the best place. US was the best place to take advantage of the dot-com boom. So basically, I stayed to get my first job, etc.
Excellent. And then you met Sasha in Chicago, right?
Yeah, we met actually sailing. So she came. I had a sailboat on Lake Michigan, and then I was always inviting friends of friends. So she came as a friend of a friend on my sailboat, and yeah, we met in while sailing. Even though I think this was one of her first time sailing ever. So.
But Sasha's Polish as well, correct?
No, she's Ukrainian.
Ukrainian. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
And she was born in Ukraine?
She was born in Ukraine, but she came to US when she was, I think, 2.5.
Oh, okay.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, that's a cool story. I hope you love it more now. I know it's probably hard to leave when you're in college anywhere because college is generally like the most
greatest time of your life.
Yeah, it's really fun.
I think it was one of the best, kind of situation that happened in my life. I mean, the life that I can enjoy now, and the family that I have, the awesome wife Sasha I have, and the kiddos. I mean, it's fantastic. So wouldn't change it for anything.
Absolutely. You live in an area that never snows and never gets cold, so that's pretty good too, right? Much better than Chicago.
We moved. The reason why we moved
Chicago's
to Chicago
great
because
too,
we photographed a wedding on New Year's Eve. And we were coming back after New Year's Eve from a wedding, and it was like 4 degrees outside in Chicago.
Yeah.
And we on the way home, we were talking with Sasha because we both photographed the wedding, and I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we here? Like, there's like so many other places that we can be at, and we don't have to photograph, at the 4 degree temperature outside. And she said, like, you know what? I was thinking exactly the same thing. It's like, so we started to brainstorm. It's like, and then we both agreed like California is the best place, like weather-wise and nature-wise to move. So.
Yeah, and I don't want the listeners sending me hate mail. I love Chicago. Love Chicago, especially in the fall. You cannot beat a fall or a spring in Chicago.
Summers in Chicago.
Summer, it gets a little humid, but
it's just a good time.
That's why everybody's got a swimming pool, it seems like, in Chicago.
Yeah.
So.
Now, Chicago's an awesome city, no doubt, and just winters are brutal.
Winters are brutal.
Yeah, even here I question.
Yeah. We get some similar weather here in Ohio that they get in Chicago. So, if you had to pick a favorite place, you mentioned Paris. Is there a favorite location for taking photos beside, like here in the U.S.? I mean, is there somewhere you've traveled to, or is it somewhere just in your backyard in Orange County that you like taking photos? I mean, you recently got a studio, so that could be your answer, right?
I got a studio, but I still love photographing outdoor, and I don't think I have a favorite location because I'm not. I mean, I have maybe some dramatic portraits in my portfolio, obviously the California nature is beautiful and, etc. But I think, after, you can really take beautiful photos anywhere. I mean, when I was taking Jerry Gionis workshop, I mean, he was taking some amazing photos in the back alley in Chicago, using a white van as a reflector. And I'm like, you don't need a location, it's just, you can, if you know what you're doing, I think you can photograph anywhere. So
Sure. All right. Well, I've got one last question, and I don't know if you got anything, Olivia, but I want to know, what's my last question? I'm having a brain fart. Basically, if you could photograph anybody dead or alive, anybody ever, who would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I have a tattoo. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
But I have a tattoo that kind of, and a lot of people, asking me about it. It's a weird. It's a record label tattoo, and that's a record label called Merciful Release, and that's a record label that was releasing the albums of the band called the Sisters of Mercy. I don't know if you guys heard of it. So if I could photograph in the 80s the lead singer Andrew Eldridge as his portrait, that would be my dream.
Very cool.
Okay, I see what your tattoo is now. I just looked it up.
That's an 80. It's like an 80s hairband. I don't know him.
Is it what? I'm sorry.
Is it an 80s like hairband?
No,
I see
it's
some crazy hair.
It's a pretty dark gothic band.
Okay, but they had hair too. Like it's like the traditional like 80s hairband.
It is, it's 80s. I mean, as many 80s, they still do concerts, but obviously it's not the same. But yeah, they had, I'm talking more about the early 80s, to late 80s, not the 90s, because then they kind of changed the style. But yeah, this was, definitely that would be my dream.
Awesome. Well, very cool, man. Well, anything you got?
It's not too many people have tattoos of record labels, but yeah.
Hey, something, it's something that drives you, so that's cool. It tells us a story about you, and probably something a lot of people don't know about you, right? But now they do.
Yeah.
So, Yannick, where can people find you? If people want to find your work, obviously we mentioned Wazio Faces, which isn't pronounced Wazio Faces. Where else can people find you? Instagram, Facebook, like where would people find you?
So Instagram, I try to stay current and active on Instagram. So either Vasio is the main brand, and Vasio_faces is my my headshots. You can always add me on Facebook, and message me directly. But yeah, either website or Instagram are the best places to find me. And I also have a YouTube channel under Yannick Vasio. So you can find some of the videos, that I did, over there as well.
What kind of YouTube content do you have?
Well, I'm not a professional YouTuber, and it's definitely, more kind of, something that I can, do there when I have a little bit of free time. So it's definitely photography related. It's for other photographers. And sometimes whatever idea I have, I'm just going to put it there. So it's from retouching to lighting, techniques, to some social media graphics, using Adobe Spark. So, there's a, variety of videos there.
Very
Are you
cool.
singing any of the Merciful Release songs?
No, I'm not singing, but I usually have some videos. I mean, some T-shirts, either Joy Division T-shirt or Frontline Assembly or Sisters of Mercy T-shirts. So yeah, so I got comments before about my T-shirts that I'm wearing during those videos. So
awesome, man. Well, that's it for this week's Photo Pros Weekly. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. That's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.